in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
You want reckless speculation?
You know this thing will happen.
How about reckless trade speculation?
I spent so much of my weekend watching old school wrestling and like peak JR and Jerry Lawler, and it was just phenomenal. I love those two together.
I think if we could just get now, Jim Ross is getting a little old now. Jim Ross, I think, referred to AEW as WWE on their live show last week.
Boy.
But if we could just get Jim Ross to announce all big sporting events, all due respect to old Marv Albert, who just retired over the weekend. Jim Ross calling the NBA Finals,
you know what?
I think, would be great.
You boys need to tune in to some more of 82-year-old Jim Cott. That's who you need to tune
he's
into more.
great. He'll criticize somebody.
But he's 82.
But
he's 82. It's incredible. He sounds like he's 55.
Yeah, no, he'll criticize somebody. It's shocking.
It was phenomenal.
Bally Sports North executives just, oh my God, he's going to say something
But
negative.
can you imagine, like, he never, ever, he doesn't watch the Twins consistently, and he never, like, gets confused it's like he's 55. He's 82. At 82, I'm going to be slobbering if I'm alive.
I love it. You just expect all 82-year-olds to just be confused.
No, but I'm saying I don't expect them to
it's
sound
crazy.
like they're in their 50s. I
He's
will tell you
walking
flat
on his
out.
own. It's crazy.
I will tell you flat out, as a guy whose parents both got into that territory, to have them be as sharp as Jim Cott is right now would have been phenomenal. Yeah. It's really phenomenal.
Jim Cott,
get
he's
Jim
not
Ross.
slobbering.
Yeah,
Come
so
join
get
us
Jim
tonight
Ross,
on Bally
PSN.
Sports North.
Have Jim Cott work with Jim Ross, and Jim Ross can figure out how not to age so rapidly.
So this is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment, and we just want titles. We want titles, and so part of that process is swinging big trades. And Declan's been thinking about old school wrestling all weekend. Judd's been watching Jim Cott all weekend. I've just been scouring the salary charts. I've literally been just refreshing Ben Simmons, Timberwolves. Other names, Timberwolves, rumors, Ben Simmons, rumors, all weekend long here, just on my phone.
Reckless speculation.
And we have an update here, all right?
Oh.
This is a summary from NBCSports.com. I'm just gonna read you this. All right? The last picture in most people's minds of Ben Simmons is a guy in his own head, his confidence shaken, passing up a dunk in Game 7 against the Hawks. With that came the perception that Simmons both needed to be traded and that his trade value had hit an all-time low, right? I mean, last year people were talking about Ben Simmons for the number 1 pick and other things, Ben Simmons for James Harden, and now it's like, Ben Simmons for a bag of thumbtacks. While Philadelphia and GM Daryl Morey are open to trading Simmons, his value around the NBA is not as low as many fans think, according to Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated. He said this on Bill Simmons' Ringer podcast. Quote, I hear from executives all the time that are loving this Ben Simmons trade value has cratered conversation because they hope that Philadelphia believes that. I think his trade value is actually higher than what's being publicly portrayed, but you're going to continue to hear a lot of that negativity around Ben Simmons. In other words, I think people value him pretty high across the league because I do think there's a belief that someone's going to figure the shooting thing out. So now I have a couple Ben Simmons trade scenarios here to run by you. One that we floated before that I've thought about more this weekend. But when you see this report, Chris Mannix very plugged in. Do you think Ben Simmons is going to be had for like 50 cents on the dollar, or do you think there's going to be enough teams involved to where you're still going to have to pay full? I believe there was another report that said it's going to take an all-star caliber player to get him. So whatever you want to sort of defer from that. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I don't think it's going to take as much as it would have last year, because I do think the price last year was extremely high, and probably at that point in time, given the expectations that still surrounded him, should have been. The playoff lack of success definitely is going to decrease his value a bit, but it's not going to be, hey, we'll give you a second-round pick and a first-round pick in 2027 or something, and just take. It's going to take more, and that's why I think if it's the Wolves, it might have to be, if they were to make this trade, D'Lo, because fans always want to package their garbage and like one sort of good piece, but they don't want to give up their key pieces. I don't think the Sixers are going to make that trade. Where I don't think the Mannix report is correct is figuring the shooting thing out to me is a very simple sports type of thing to say. Just figure it out. Yeah, just work on it. Just work on it. He's mentally broken. So, like, you can't say, you know what, we're going to figure it out. Because this is a type of thing that we saw in the playoffs, Phil. It can creep up now at any time and get much worse. So let's just say you get him back to being sufficient or good. He's not great, but he's good. Okay, but then the pressure gets on in the playoffs and he starts to come apart. I don't like the sportsy, we'll just fix that. Like Knobloch's throwing to first base. You can't just be like, we'll fix it. You can think that you can. And this is the thing about Simmons, where if I was negotiating with the Sixers, I would make this very clear. Because the one thing, the hubris of sports teams is, we'll do what you couldn't do, right? Like the Sixers can't do it, but we can.
It's the Francisco Liriano White Sox thing, right? Don Cooper sees a couple things in his delivery.
It's the girlfriend thing, right? He's a bad boy, but I'll fix him. I'll tame him. I'll get him to calm down. Like, you can't just do that. It doesn't work that way. That's not how life works. So, yes, you're exactly right. So that's the one thing that I would caution against saying his value should be as high as it previously was. Thinking you're going to fix him for sure is the type of hubris that gets you in trouble.
People are also, I think, mistakenly, like, yes, he's a bad shooter, and yes, he had a meltdown in the playoffs, but I think people are mistakenly saying, well, if you can't fix his shooting, then he's a worthless player, that sure, because he can't shoot, therefore everything else that he does really well is worthless. Well, that's not true. Even if you take away the shooting, he's one of the best defenders in the league. He's one of the best for his position, rebounders, passers in the league. One of the best at getting to the rim and then converting at the rim and scoring at point-blank range inside 5 feet. So there's a lot of things that he does really, really well. And then if he can just be passable in some of the shooting areas, yes, mid-range, free throw line, nobody's asking him to be Bradley Beal from downtown. But I've been thinking a lot more about, believe it or not, the Philly Sports Network blog trade that we just threw out. We were throwing out all these fun Ben Simmons ideas last week, and it's all fun and games, right? It's all reckless speculation. It's all fun and games.
Reckless speculation.
Until you really start to drill down deep, and I think one of these trade scenarios is not just fun and games. I think it checks all of the boxes for all of the teams involved. And this, I will put this as my number one favorite trade scenario involving the Timberwolves and Ben Simmons, presented by our friends at PXG. PXG Minneapolis, if you're a golf fan out there and you just want to shave a few strokes off your swing, you want to look better, PXG Minneapolis is a golfer's paradise. Stop by. They've got clubs and they've got apparel at all different price ranges. So check them out inside Southdale Center. And maybe those Gen 4 golf clubs, we're talking about the Ben Simmons at his peak is sort of like the Gen 4 golf clubs. If you can get that shot honed, then you'll have something of the caliber of the clubs that PXG makes: drivers, fairways, hybrids, irons, etc. PXG.com/Minneapolis. So here it is. If you guys don't remember it from last week, the Wolves would get Ben Simmons. The 76ers would get Kyle Lowry in a sign-and trade from the Raptors. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that in a second. They would also get Malik Beasley, Naz Reid, and a 2024 first-round pick. So just 3 years down the road, kicking a first-round pick. The Raptors would get Ricky Rubio's expiring contract, which is a $17 million chunk that comes off the books. It would help them in free agency next summer. Jarrett Culver, for whatever he's worth, former number 6 overall pick, right? And then a 2022 first-round pick. They have it top 10 protected. We can comb through those details at a later date. But when you look at the boxes that would need to be checked here, okay, let's start with the 76ers. They want to get an all-star caliber player for Ben Simmons. Well, Kyle Lowry might be 35, but he's made the all-star game 6 times in the last 7 years. He's a sniper shooter. He's still one of the best guards in the NBA, and he's got Philadelphia ties. So it makes a lot of sense. The Raptors would get something for Kyle Lowry, who's a free agent. This would be a sign-and trade. So if Kyle Lowry wants to go sign somewhere else, the Raptors would get nothing. So I would think it's very appealing for the Raptors if you go to them and say, listen, we got a solution here for you, all right? You're going to get something for a free agent. It's a sign and trade, but you're going to get an expiring contract. You can take a flyer on a former top 6 overall pick, and you'll get a first-round pick in 2022 for a guy that could walk if he wanted to and sign anywhere that would pay him the money that he wants. And then the Timberwolves, the box that they would check, they would get Ben Simmons without having to give up D'Angelo Russell, Ant Edwards, or Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, the salaries all work out. I look at this and I'm like,
both first-round picks would come from the Timberwolves. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the Wolves would be the Wolves would be giving up 2 future first-round picks. And by the way, you'd have to wait till after the draft to do this because the NBA league rules state you can't trade back-to-back future first-round picks. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to because you don't have any first-round picks this year. You'd have to wait till after the draft, which is what would happen anyways. So the Wolves would be giving up Ricky Rubio, basically his 1-year contract, Jarrett Culver, Malik Beasley, Naz Reid, and 2 future first-round picks. So a lot of pieces, but they get to keep the 3 core 25 and under pillar players and add Ben Simmons to that bunch. What do you guys think?
My favorite part of this trade from the Wolves' point of view that I would hate to give up is actually not Beasley, it's Naz Reid, who I like a lot.
I thought you were going to say it's Ricky Rubio's leadership because Ant Edwards loves Ricky Rubio's leadership. It makes me think a little bit.
That's fantastic. I am glad. And they can keep in touch, too, because we've got cell phones now and Gmail and whatever.
AIM? We got instant.
AOL.
That's the oldest Judd has ever sounded right there.
Yeah.
AOL or whatever. Or, we got selfies that they can take and send back and forth.
We've got the internet now.
Getting ready for a big game. How you doing, Ant? Oh, I'm doing great, Ricky. But you know what? We don't need Ricky Rubio here. So that's great. Naz Reid is actually probably the biggest part of this trade to me if I'm the Wolves that I hate to part with. But that being said, the shooting really concerns me. But here's why I'm curious about this trade. The more I think about the potential, which I do think has decent potential, the step up in defense that you would get, and it sounds like so the fear of the trade is Ben Simmons can't really shoot, and it's sort of Ricky part deux, right? You got a guy that really can't shoot. And Ricky has some attributes, but he's definitely getting old and slowing down. Ben Simmons is not slowing down yet. So what intrigues me is what would be the significant upgrade in defense that you would get to offset the shooting problems that Simmons might have? Because I don't know, I think Finch's system and the system that the Wolves are going to put in place with a full training camp is going to help this team. But I don't know right now if you have the components or the players to defensively get to where you're going to need to be to actually be truly competitive. So that's the one thing about this that the more thought I give it really does, because this guy right away defensively would improve you by how much? I mean, it would be a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you would right now. You're one of the worst defensive teams in the league,
and I don't know you're going to improve that much.
But you will. Group. Oh, with this current group.
No,
you're saying
with this current. What I'm saying is, with this current group, if you make no moves,
yes,
I think your defense. I think your defense might take some incremental small steps because of systems and practice time and all that. But you don't really have a group of people that say, "I love defense."
Yes. Now I think. With Cat, with some of these guys, the ship has kind of sailed. Cat can get a little better defensively, and you've seen Chris Finch was able to put him in some certain spots. Is Cat ever going to be what KG was in his prime defensively? No, he's just not. I'm sorry, D'Lo's never going to be a lockdown perimeter defender. He's too small, and he's just not shown any sort of ability or wherewithal. Ant looked lost a lot last year defensively. There's still some hope because of just his athletic ability, his motor. I think the book is still out on him as to how good of a defensive player he can be. I think he can be a good, but again, it's sort of you're flipping a coin going into next year. Ben Simmons, there's 2 types of, I think, defensive players that would help the Wolves. There's rim protector, like Miles Turner coming in and just being a shot blocker, rim protector guy, right? But I think the thing that would help them the most is somebody up at the top of the defensive formation, a perimeter defender that's going to prevent the whole thing from caving in to begin with. You watch any Wolves game this season, and the new phrase that people love to use in today's NBA circles and just fans is like this. It's called the spin cycle. When a team runs pick and roll, or it's just a one-on-one breakdown, James Harden at the top of the key, and you get by the first line of perimeter defense. And now it becomes like the defending team has to rotate, and now there's ball movement, swinging the ball around, and they're always going to find the open shooter. And if you can at least delay that from happening, you're probably never going to stop it in today's NBA because you can't hand check, but it's like if you can, instead of it happening at 18 seconds on the shot clock, so the opposing team now has half the shot clock to put you through the spin cycle and get an open look. If you can delay it from happening by an extra 5 seconds or something, right?
Basketball.
Cause some chaos. That's really what the Wolves need to do a better job of. And so I love the idea. And not to mention, if Ben Simmons comes in and you don't have to give up Cat, D'Lo, or Ant, the other question you're going to wonder is, well, wait a second. They give up Beasley, so they're losing some shooting there. But Cat is one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. D'Lo is a great three-point shooter, and Ant in the second half of the season showed he can shoot. You also have guys like Jalen Noel, like Hernan Gomez is still on your roster. You've got three-point shooters around, and there's still some things you could probably do to bring in veterans. You've got shooters around Ben Simmons, maybe even more than Philadelphia, and he would just have to be a distributor and a guy to get out of the way of some of these guys who are more ball-centric. So I don't know. I love it. What about you, Declan? Where are you at with this? Is this just a crazy blogger trade scenario or what?
This is not. I mean, the only side that is concerning in the trade is Toronto. Like, Toronto's basically saying, all right, we're going to get rid of Kyle Lowry.
He's gone now. Kyle Lowry is a free agent right now.
Okay, but regardless, they're moving on from him. They've moved on from that championship team. They're heading a reset build. Like, they're basically going to be rebuilding, right? I think, although they won their championship, and on this show, we want championships, and you do whatever it takes to get those championships, I don't know if Toronto's just going to go into a complete rebuild, reset mode. I don't know if they will do that. However, to the Naz Reid point, if Naz Reid is the camel that breaks the straws back on this trade, then we have other Minnesota sports problems we're dealing with there. Because it's, even though he's a nice rotation player, it's Naz Reid. Naz Reid at his best, I don't think is going to be like a quote unquote game breaker on any team. He's a nice player. He belongs on most rotations. I'm not saying he's replaceable, but if it's Naz Reid from the Timberwolves side that is like, a fan side, I can't do that because I really like Naz Reid and he's really important off the bench and he's a really important player just in general. But you can get Ben Simmons. You have to pull off that trade.
I feel like that is a very Minnesota sports thing to do, though, where it's like, oh, man, do we have to throw in Aaron Hicks to get Cliff Lee? Oh, I don't know. I feel like he's going to be good at some point. It's like, yeah, Naz Reid's a good player, but Ben Simmons, even with the shooting flaws, is one of the top 25 to 30 players in the NBA.
In my defense, I honestly believe unloading Beasley right now would be a positive. I know he can shoot. I know he has attributes on the court. But the off-the-court stuff scares me, and I don't know that he's good enough to justify it. So Reed, to me, is just a solid backup. And ultimately, if you trade two first-round picks, one goes to the Sixers and one goes to the Raptors, one of those two could hurt you more. But I just don't see the big deal in trading Beasley, and in fact, think it would be a net positive possibly if you could, because I don't know Beasley gets it. Like, he'll tell you he gets it. I don't know he gets it. And the last thing that you need is off-the-court problems on a continual basis.
Listen, we've all pulled a shotgun on a passerby in our neighborhood before. We've all tapped on the window of a family driving by.
That's the type of stuff. And then you're in car. You never want to have the conversation about a player on a team in your town. Well, when they get out of jail, they can go work out with the Wolves. Like, that's not a good conversation to have. That's not the normal,
Reckless speculation.
For instance, when he gets out of a walking boot, he can go practice. Oh, that's good, right? When he gets back from Europe, he can practice. Okay, I can get my head around that. When he gets unincarcerated, that's where I probably draw a line and think that's really not a good path to go down.
When he gets the ankle bracelet removed. All right, here's another one for you guys. And we'll get to statements. We'll get to random season recall on today's show. Former Mackey and Judd intern Duncan Goldberg floated this idea to us. He has become a member of the Reckless Speculation Club, if you will.
Lifestyle.
So the Timberwolves would get Ben Simmons. The 76ers would get the all-star player that they covet for Ben Simmons in Bradley Beal. I'm also tweaking this because there's some salary things in here that make it kind of tough because the Wolves have to give up enough salary to get Ben Simmons. Bradley Beal makes a little bit more than Ben Simmons. So I'm saying the Sixers get Beal and Malik Beasley, which is quite a bit. The Wizards would get the Wolves' 2022 and 24 first-round picks. Ricky Rubio is expiring, and George Hill from the Sixers. So Ben Simmons to the Wolves for Malik Beasley, 2 first-round picks, and Ricky Rubio is expiring. Mm-hmm. The Sixers get Bradley Beal and Malik Beasley, and they give up Ben Simmons and George Hill, which seems like the Sixers might have to give up a little bit more than that, but we can tweak some of this. And then the Wizards, they really should have been rebuilding like 2 years ago. It's time, guys, okay? They would get 2 first-round picks, an expiring Ricky Rubio contract, and I believe an expiring George Hill contract for a year guaranteed of Bradley Beal because he has a player option for the year after that. Your thoughts on that? So the Wolves get Ben Simmons for Malik Beasley, Ricky Rubio, and 2 future first-round picks.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to do that.
Yep.
I mean,
that's a better deal than the
Beasley to me is not a huge loss. The first-round picks are, but you're going to have to give something to get a good player back. Yeah, I think both trades that you have floated so far have been plausible. Like, I wouldn't laugh at them and say that's ridiculous. And I mean, you're going to have to give up. If you can avoid giving up D'Lo, I think internally that would be considered a win.
Yeah. I think the only way you can pull this off in a one-on-one deal with the 76ers is to give up D'Lo. Because the Sixers they're looking to swap Ben Simmons for someone who can shoot threes and also handle the ball on the outside. They're just looking for a different type of guard on the outside that can stay clear of Joel Embiid and just be more of a complementary player.
Sure.
The only way you would get that, like, you're not going to be able to trade Philadelphia in a one-on-one deal, Malik Beasley and Ricky Rubio, and have them think that they've upgraded somehow. Like, yeah, they would upgrade their shooting with Beasley. The only way I think it gets done one-on-one is if it's D'Lo. And I don't know. I would still probably consider that if I'm the Timberwolves, but it's not the no-brainer that adding Ben Simmons to your current trio of young players.
So who's going to come in and from the standpoint of different teams that might be talking to the Sixers, who's going to come in and potentially, if not blow the Wolves' offer out of the water, certainly compete with it? That would make it difficult.
Well, I think there's so many off-season dominoes. This is where it gets interesting because there's going to be a lot of teams that also are trying to get Damian Lillard or maybe even CJ McCollum. Like, there are so many things that could happen this offseason, but I'm curious to know, are there teams that are interested in Damian Lillard and also potentially Ben Simmons? And like, they'd have to strike out on Damian Lillard to even enter the Ben Simmons sweepstakes.
Does Dame get traded? I still can't figure that one out either. I think Simmons gets traded.
He reportedly wants out, but obviously Portland, like, they brought in Chauncey Billups to coach Dame Lillard. Correct. And to take this thing to the next level. I think Portland's in the mix to get Ben Simmons. I mean, there's a lot of talk about swapping CJ McCollum. Maybe CJ McCollum goes to Philadelphia and something else, and then Ben Simmons comes in here, and maybe that unclogs things for Philadelphia, and it just provides a different layer and a different element for Portland, which has been stalling out basically in the same spot for 7 years now. So, but I think, just to put a bow on this, if the Timberwolves want Ben Simmons, and if they want Ben Simmons without giving up one of their 3 best players, it has to be a 3 or a 4 team trade. And so these are the types of, you got to find those teams that are looking to potentially hit the rebuild button so you can throw those first round picks over there. Toronto, Washington. So there's some interesting ideas here, and I'm here for it. This is a blast.
Give me your Wolves playoff percentage with and without Ben for 2021-22.
Are we talking like to make the play-in tournament?
Well, I mean, to make the playoffs, yes. So to be a top 10 team, what's your percentage without him if no trade is made, or, you know, let's say that one of the 2 trades that you've gone through is made, what does it go to?
I think without him, God, like, there's so many teams. I mean, Golden State's going to get better. Dallas, like, I'm just trying, like, who are the teams above the Wolves that are for sure going to come crashing down? I just don't. I mean, that's a non-existent list, basically. So if they could still, if they don't get Ben Simmons, they could still get a Miles Turner. They could, like, there's still ways they could add to this team. But I would say without Ben Simmons, I mean, it's probably a 15 to 25% chance that they get. I'll say 25% chance. 25% chance. Because that's probably too low.
I would say 30 to 35.
Still below 50. We're all still saying below 50.
Below 50.
Right?
Below 50.
Below 50.
Yeah. Below
if
50.
they get Ben Simmons without giving up D'Lo, Ant, or Karl Anthony Towns, it's for sure above 50% to make the playoffs. I'd say they're more in that like 5 to 8 seed range.
Okay.
If they add a player like that, and now like think about this too, like you know, it's not like the NFL or Major League Baseball where, God, in the NFL you need a 53-man roster still, right? You can't just have a quarterback and a receiver. Like you still need all these other things. In the NHL, you need 4 lines. In baseball, you need 25 guys. If you have 4 bad bullpen guys, like you're not making the playoffs. In the NBA, you really need an 8 to 10-man rotation. And if you've got Cat, D'Lo, Ant, and Ben Simmons, and then you've got guys like Jared Vanderbilt, you've got Jalen Noel, like you've got some other interesting little pieces. Josh Okogie is still kind of a rotation guy. You only need to find like 5 other dudes that can contribute, shoot or play some defense, grab some rebounds, bring some energy, and you've got something. So, below 50% without him, and then I would say closer to like 65, 70% with him.
It's good to be back. Reckless speculation.
Oh,
Good
my
to be
God.
back.
It's amazing.
The holidays are over. We're right into it.
Speculation.
And that feeding of reckless speculation was also presented by our friends at Federated. Federated Mutual Insurance Company is here to help give you peace of mind as a business owner. They create specialized and tailored services and products for your business. And you can find a full list of industries that they protect that range across the board. Go to their website, federatedinsurance.com. And also check out some of the amazing new products and resources like MyShield, different training products and safety training. So federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours.